We have a lot of news to discuss today, including our first suspension of the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. We have some big news out of Montreal as well, with some players going down to the minors. We have several coaching updates as well on teams like the Vancouver Canucks, the New York Rangers, and even, yes, the Montreal Canadiens. We'll get into the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of news to talk about here today. I know there's lots of playoff action going on as this video is going to be posted to YouTube, so certainly hope you're enjoying the early action here in the first round of the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. The first few games have been absolutely phenomenal. I know that game between the Panthers and the Lightning last night especially was probably my favorite highlight of the day yesterday with all of the first batch of games. I know the Caps and Bruins were pretty good in their first game too, but that was a phenomenal game. Maybe the best game of the season. And we certainly saw a lot of animosity and a lot of hatred towards each club, and it's only game one, so you know that it's going to continue to amp up and get even more intense here. But we did see some big hits that have certainly are resulting in some extra discipline. So Sam Bennett of the Florida Panthers is going to be suspended for one game, so he'll miss game 2 of that series, which is a really unfortunate set of situations here for the Florida Panthers. Obviously, we saw the hit on Coleman, which was certainly... I have no problem with this call, actually, to be honest. I think the hit was a dirty hit, and I have no issue with a one-game suspension. Obviously, if it was a regular season, we probably would have seen him get 2 or 3 games, but one game in the playoffs is certainly adequate. The only thing for me is I think that the hit from Ryan McDonough would have been just as bad. So I still find it, I guess, a little bit frustrating that I personally, in my opinion, I just find player safety to be inconsistent with some of their decisions. So that's me. But Sam Bennett is out for game 2 for Florida, which is bad. I mean, I know a lot of people are putting some blame on his shoulders for the penalty call, which led to the go-ahead goal, and obviously the suspension kind of hurting his team. But at the same time, it's playoff hockey. It's something that Sam Bennett normally thrives upon. He was a big force for that team, plays really hard, and you know what? There's more than just him out there. So it's an unfortunate set of circumstances, but it is what it is. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of this as the playoffs go on. Now, speaking of getting ready for the playoffs, the Habs are not quite there yet. They don't kick off their series with the Leafs until Thursday, and they sent down a couple of wily veterans down to the American Hockey League, which actually probably getting underway here as I record this video. So Carey Price and Brendan Gallagher both going down to the Laval Rocket of the AHL to get some game action in, since they've been out of the lineup for an extended period of time. Now, there certainly appears to be some mixed results on this. I know for Price especially, what if he gets hurt? And same with Gallagher. They're coming off an injury. Price is expected to play half the game. Gallagher will play the whole game, obviously, but I would imagine he'll probably have reduced minutes. I wouldn't suspect he'll be like a 20-minute game or anything for him, but still, I understand the fact that they want to get some conditioning in, and game action is the best way to do that. It's just where you're going into a playoff game in a couple of days. I'm kind of on the fence. I'm not really sure how I feel about it, if this was really an absolute wise idea. Now, if they come out of this game completely unscathed and they got to have some good on-ice action and they feel good going into the playoff series, then maybe it'll be all right. But, heaven forbid something unforeseen happen. I mean, you get guys in the American League that, a lot of them down there are not necessarily projecting to be NHL players, so they might take a liberty or two. You just never know. And they're also going against the American Hockey League team of the team they're playing against here, so they're playing them the Marlies. So I don't know, not to say that Toronto would do anything intentionally. I'm not going to put that blame out there, because that's some pretty mighty accusations, but I don't know. I just see some risk involved. I'm not sure that the risk reward is weighed out enough in the favor here to do it, but obviously they felt it was, and we'll see. Hopefully nothing comes from it and everything works out all right and they can play Thursday and all will be well. But certainly some interesting developments. Not something you see, especially around playoff time in normal situations. Another quick note here as well. ESPN has announced that they have hired the first female play-by-play broadcaster on a full-time basis. So Leah Hextall is going to be part of the ESPN broadcast team for their NHL contract kicking in for next season. So that's certainly a major step forward in a good direction here to have more females involved. I know there was a time earlier this season when they had an all-female broadcast for, I believe it was on Hockey Night in Canada, and Leah Hextall was a part of that. She did a great job, and I certainly, think she deserves a full-time opportunity. So this is great to see. Nice to see ESPN getting their crew together, not only with great personalities, but with a diverse group, and certainly given a full-time opportunity to, to kind of make way here for more females to get chances. So that's great on them. I look forward to seeing who else they hire. There are some talks that they're talking to guys and maybe even have deals. I don't think anything's been announced, but I know Ray Ferraro is expected to be one of their in-game analysts here as well. So obviously he works with TSN. I would suspect he'll probably still work with TSN. He'll probably work with both. So I would suspect that likely means his TSN duties kind of get scaled back a little bit here. So we'll see. But it'd be interesting to see who else they bring in here along with Turner as they get their crews ready for next year. Now, as I mentioned, we have lots of talk going on in the NHL coaching world. I want to start here with Vancouver now. I know Elliot Friedman had an interview today with some Vancouver media. I know on Czech TV he met with obviously guys like Rick Dhaliwal, and they were talking a bit about the Canucks situation, and he seems convinced that there's definitely going to be changes, but it's really hard to pinpoint exactly what it is. But one of the quotes I found interesting was saying that they're not really acting like they want head coach Travis Green back, that maybe contract negotiations are not really going anywhere. It doesn't even seem like they're even taking place. I mean, it's just so hard to imagine. Everything is so quiet on that front. And I wonder maybe if Jim Benning has been told not to proceed with anything until they've just done more evaluations. I don't know what things are at it, but it's just so confusing. I know yesterday we talked about the possibility of Jim Benning not coming back as GM, and that's still a possibility, but I know Friedman says that he can't really confirm that things are trending in a direction that Benning or Green won't be back. It's possible that both could be back, but it's also possible that even if they are back, that there could be more parties involved. Maybe the Canucks will bring in somebody as either a president of hockey operations or as an advisor to the ownership group, and maybe have a little bit more of a voice on some of the decisions. I mean, so we'll see how things go. But I know Travis Green is a coach that I think is pretty well respected. Former player, been around the game a long time, put in his dues as coaching his way up the ranks. Certainly earned an opportunity in Vancouver. Most feel he's done a pretty good job with what he's been given there. And obviously, it's a situation where, I don't know, I think he'll get plenty of looks elsewhere if he's not back in Vancouver. I mean, there's going to be a handful of teams we know looking for coaches. We've already seen some obviously make some moves here, which we're going to talk about, like the Rangers, the Sabres, and there's more. There's bound to be one or two coaches that are out in the first round of the playoffs that probably get let go. Like that seems to always happen. And you get the ones that now Seattle still needs a coach. So, obviously there's going to be opportunities. I have no doubt he'd be getting lots of interviews right away if he's not back. But it's just hard to predict what's going on in Vancouver. But right now, how things are looking, based on the latest information from Elliot Friedman, it just doesn't seem like there's really hard to put a percentage on, like, what are the odds of Green being re-signed and continuing on as head coach of this team. And same goes for Jim Benning that we talked about yesterday. So let me know your thoughts, especially if you're a Canucks fan. Do you think either of them should be returning? Do they deserve more of an opportunity? Should they go in a whole new direction? Let me know down below, and we'll discuss further. When it comes to the New York Rangers, we know they cleaned house here recently. David Quinn, majority of his staff were gone. Of course, Jeff Gorton and John Davidson were already ousted. We have Chris Drury in place as the new general manager and president of hockey operations. And it looks as though they've got their first interview in the books. That's Gerard Gallant, former head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers. Of course, he's been an assistant around the league as well. Had a lot of success in junior. I know he got a Memorial Cup with the St. John Sea Dogs. Well respected and certainly well accomplished coaching career so far. Now, one of the reasons why Glenn had to be interviewed so quickly, not only was he high on their list of people that they wanted to talk to, but of course he's also working currently as the head coach for the World Championships for Team Canada, and they were preparing to head over to Latvia, going overseas here for this tournament. So for them to have a chance to really get this interview done before the tournament started, they had to act quickly. So they did get permission from Vegas to speak with him, and they got that interview conducted. So obviously he's had a chance. Now they're bound to ask and talk to many others around the NHL. And most people that I see talk about this with inside information seems to think that they're probably going to want to talk to at least 5 or 6 more people that are, going to be considered for this opening. I would think too that one of the big things they're looking at, and I know some are convinced of it, that they're not going to make a decision until they know 100% the status in Carolina of head coach Rod Brind'Amour. I know most feel that basically he seems seems to have like a verbal or a handshake agreement on what his contract's going to look like. At least that's what some think. I can't confirm if that's true 100% or not. But of course, he wants the remaining of his staff, but not only his assistants, but equipment, training, everybody else. A lot of them are needing new deals too, and he wants all of them re-signed to make sure that the whole supporting staff is looked after, and he wants that done before he signs. So that's what the word is from guys like Johnston and Friedman of Sportsnet. So clearly, if that's the case, it might be a little while before he actually signs, and people are watching that situation closely, because if things were to go sideways and he were to become an unrestricted free agent coach, a lot of teams, including the Rangers and Sabres and everybody else looking for a coach, is certainly going to want to talk to this guy. He's had a ton of success in the past few years. Very well could win the Coach of the Year, Jack Adams Award this year. A real good chance of that. Carolina's one of the teams that are near the top of the NHL standings, considered a Stanley Cup contender this year. So, clearly, I would think the Rangers would want to have a word with him before they make a decision. So I know some are convinced that they're not going to make a full move here until they get more clarity on that situation. But I know Rick Tocchet was a name that was appeared to be getting some buzz from the Rangers. I think he'll probably get an interview. And there's likely bound to be others too. I mean, Mike Babcock, you get Bruce Boudreau out there as very experienced head coaches. They could be in the mix. I know even Bob Hartley, who just won a KHL championship over in Russia, obviously has connections to Chris Drury. They won a Stanley Cup together in Colorado, with Hartley being the head coach. So many felt like he would be considered. So we'll see how things go. But ultimately, they have a lot more people to talk to before we get a decision. And Brendan Moore's situation might be kind of slowing things down here eventually, depending on how long they go on a playoff run, but before we have any clarity on that situation. Now, another situation as well in Buffalo. Don Granado right now is still an interim coach, and Kevin Adams is also expected to interview other candidates. However, many feel that Granado does stand an excellent chance to get the job on a full-time basis, that obviously this team performed way better with him at the helm after they moved on from Ralph Kruger. So clearly the team was very pleased with the progress they made and the job that he did there. And at this point, where things are at with Buffalo, they know they're likely going to have to make some potential franchise-altering moves this offseason. It's really difficult to say what this team on paper for a player personnel roster perspective is going to look like next fall. And they might obviously have to take some more steps back before they can get better. And they need a coach that could be, somebody who's strong at development and obviously be patient and work with this group over a few years' time to help get them to the point where they can hopefully contend for the playoffs again. If they end up trading guys like Eichel and Reinhart, which are, widely rumored to be the case, it's going to be a really tough job, and they're going to have to make sure they get the right guy. So why not stick with the guy who you've already seen have some at least lower level of success and seem to gel well with this group and do a good job? I mean, to me, it makes sense rather than bring in some big ticket coach. There was a ton of experience that, obviously, might not be the right guy long term anyway. So we'll see, but they're going to interview other candidates. But Granado does seem to have the odds on favorite, I guess, to land that job. And lastly here, Montreal Canadiens. Yes, technically they don't need a coach right now, but we'll see how the playoffs go. And I do think there's a lot of pressure on Dominic Ducharme and Marc Bergevin both. Not to say that there's really going to be significant change, but there is a real possibility that there could be. And I know that obviously with Ducharme, it's a situation that Patrick Roy is being rumored to really want to get back into the NHL ranks, as preferably as a coach, possibly in management. But everybody that's talking about it that has any kind of information on the inside here seems to think that his preferred job would be to go to the Habs. Now, obviously, he's not going to go to the Habs if there's no job opening. But if you have ownership at the top there, Jeff Molson, and maybe even to a degree Bergevin, if he decides to sign an extension and if he keeps on, you have to think that that's a real possibility. If they have some playoff failures here, that maybe they'll go in a different direction and bring in the name recognition guy, Patrick Roy, who could be a whole different enigma here to take this team hopefully to a next level. But for example, I mean, don't get me wrong, Dominic Ducharme's a guy that I've followed his coaching career for a long time. I follow a lot of my local teams in Atlantic Canada for the QMJHL, so I'm quite familiar with him when he was with the Halifax Mooseheads. Had a ton of success there. Coached Team Canada, had a lot of success there. So, I mean, I've been a fan of this guy as a coach for a long time. So he's certainly somebody I think can do a great job. I think he's got a lot of potential. But obviously, for example, going into Game 1 against the Leafs, the fact that Kotkaniemi and Cole Caulfield two of his young players, especially in the case of Caulfield, not to disrespect Kotkaniemi, but Caulfield's proven already in a short time that he can put the puck in the net in the NHL. Goals are hard to come by, especially in the playoffs, and this team is struggling to score goals already, and now they're leaving him out of the lineup. At least it appears. So far in their practices leading into this playoff series, it looks as though Kotkaniemi and Caulfield are going to be the healthy scratches ahead of this game one here in Toronto, which to me is mind-boggling. I don't get that. I don't know if that's solely Ducharme's choice, if that's Bergevin influence. I don't know what it is, but to me, that's ludicrous. Guys like Eric Stahl are getting more of an opportunity, who's done absolutely nothing after that original overtime winner to start his time there in Montreal, but yet a guy like Caulfield can't get in a lineup. It's absurd. So if they have playoff failures and there is openings, Patrick Roy is a guy to watch. I guarantee you he'll have interest in that role and would be considered. Now, if nothing materializes there, he certainly will be getting other looks around the NHL and likely land somewhere before the start of next season. So let me know your thoughts on everything discussed here today. If you're a Habs fan especially, do you like the idea of Caulfield not being in the lineup? Do you think it's absurd? What are your thoughts on Ducharme's choices so far? Do you think they should consider changes if things don't work out here in the playoffs? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news for all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.